Welcome back to Judge with a Grudge, second episode. This episode concerns the case of the people versus a damn fool financial services company in Florida that operates nationally. The case concerns two businesses run closely together by a pair of homosexual men who are also in a committed relationship with each other, and presumably residing at the same address and so forth, yada yada. However, the fact that these men, the sexual orientation of the business owners is not of interest to any court based on law, and is not basis for discrimination here. However, the fact that these men always talk about Chick-fil-A, a notably homophobic corporation, in their business meetings is not lost to the court and is considered evidence of a lying disposition and tendency to sell one's own people down the river on the part of the business owners. The fact that these men, partners in both senses of the term, one of these men, I should say, is the leading life insurance salesman in the country based on income, supposedly, is touted at all the morning meetings and leads people into the opportunity to make them believe that they can make money at this racket. Meanwhile, that man continues to overstate that his brother landed in jail. Well, he supposedly took a better path. I don't see that insurance sales is that much nobler than felon. But anyway, the court believes in the doctrine of guilt by association and will consider this to be evidence, again, of poor character. The apple does not typically fall from the tree in my experience. But of course, that's noted to be a bias, so the public should understand that these aren't considerations for the case. They're just facts in the mind of the judge that help him see the character of they would be the defendants if they were represented here, if they had a trial on this, and so forth. Most likely, it would be a class action lawsuit, a civil suit, against these individuals and their businesses, and not a criminal suit, but it's basically treated here as if it were a criminal suit because it seems that they are criminals. Now, of course, there is probably not sufficient evidence before you. You're going to look at this and you're going to say, where did you draw that conclusion and stuff like that? Well, the trial was not what you're seeing now. This is the summary judgment when I, without the representation of the other side, have to make my ruling and find for the case when the other side is not represented. Usually because they're in default and they don't appear, even if they're summoned. I know that this man, this crook, is armed with a lot of lawyers and very litigious, and he came after a sub-business that developed from his business where people were recruited away from his business. And so, okay, it sounds like he's all legit and professional, right? At least he protects himself with the law by surrounding himself by representation, because you need representation when you're a crook and you make that much money and you can pay for it, right? No big deal. So, of course, the fact that he has a lot of representation is not of concern whatsoever to the court. Of course, in real life, they would aggressively come after the judge. The judge would not have a stake in this at all, or he would have to they call it legal terms aside, because I didn't go to law school, and I'm not a judge. Okay, the judge would have to recuse himself if he were a stakeholder in this. But anyway, of course, if a lawsuit like this were brought up in the courts of Florida against them, they would be heavily armed, heavily defended, and aggressively defend their case with expensive money and bribery and excuse my French, stuff. And, they would probably win the case only by their aggression and because they're professional salespeople, so they can con their way into a cheating win, when in fact they are at fault. And of course, as I was saying, you don't see the evidence here. It's not before you. It was evident during the 30 days or so in which I was involved with this racket, basically all of December and some of January, I suppose, when I started, maybe February when I started selling. But you won't see it all here. You won't see all the subbing on camera and all the criticism and all the remarks and what I saw at the company and so on, the evidence that day by day painted a really bad picture of them. But because of their persuasiveness, you could make $100,000 a year. Why not try it out? I had never tried insurance sales, and it sounded almost foolproof at that point from their presentations constantly that just if you have a life insurance license, you could make money. Now, courts do approve of life insurance, especially if I was in the probate. And if I was in the probate, I would be all about life insurance. And I would go to estates and there's estates when I would be like, why don't you have life insurance? Or why didn't the deceased have life insurance? They really should have protected their assets. Or, sometimes, you get aging people who are planning their estate in those courts, and you can help them get those instruments and direct them to get those instruments, etc., etc. But anyway, the other man, the president and lead dick of the company, talks about how he was struggling and barely had the money to get his life insurance producer license and had a tough start on the phone, almost giving up several times. And he was mentioning how the fat lady who manages his office, his business manager, got him into this and made him get the license and do all this, and it turned out to be the best experience of his life. Meanwhile, my honorable personage started out and made what I identified to be a test call to the business partner, the richest life insurance man in the USA. I caught hell from the boss going off script and for not taking the call seriously, treating it like the annoying internal test call that it was. So I called the dude out on it. I was like, oh, okay, you gotta ask, maybe mention something or ask a question or something. And of course, I catch hell from the boss, so it's like, where in the manual does it say that you should say this or say that? Yada yada. So I was off the cuff. I didn't treat it like I guess they wanted me to pretend the dude was interested in life insurance, even though I knew exactly who he was. So I'm not going to do that bullshit. So, yeah, I got hell from the dumbass. Really, really very, very stressful. On the most stressful days of my life, because he was like, you're not in hourly wage land anymore. You have to defend yourself. You have to make, this is your livelihood. You have to make this serious, take this seriously. And I did, of course, take it seriously, but it was really scary when he introduced the fact that now I wasn't on an hourly wage. I had to fight for my commission. Yada, yada, yada. Anyway, he informed me that I was on thin ice, that I was not to wing it on any calls, citing that it's only safe to sell life insurance to families by the book. Like, would you allow somebody to talk to your father that way or something like that? Bullshit, so like that. and everything. So he took it out on me. He took whatever it was out on me. And ordered me to make flashcards and study up all the canned bullshit statements that the company has devised to deal with objection, which even in my regular hourly sales job, I just don't have the patience for, because I will not regurgitate. And here I'm reading something here that I wrote. I believe reading it rather well, sort of in a graduate manner, or at least a college level, and kind of fast and not like but so yeah, I am reading somewhat script that I wrote, but that doesn't mean I need to regurgitate some bullshit statement to these people. And I found when I did that, I absolutely got nowhere with these calls. They immediately hung up. Right. So to that, he said, they're hanging up on you because, honestly, you sound like a robot, and yada, yada, yada. Yeah, I see that. I'm probably on the autism spectrum. I have struggled with anxiety disorder all my life, and the previous mentioned medical study involving me really messed with my hormones and probably prevented me from becoming a full-grown ass adult at some point. But nonetheless, a lot of his agents sounded exactly like robots. Many had a flatter affect than me, and blah, 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 like that. And those are agents that supposedly are top producers. So I did not buy this, that it was me, because I had spent and invested my money and a month of my time and all this energy into this business. And I was selling my regular bookings that I booked, the appointments that I booked. I was doing quite well at that, and my metrics were very good. And so I was led to believe that I'm really not the problem. Okay. So it is not lost to me. The boss has a double standard between his own shaky start, reportedly, and the learning curve. Naturally, although you're made to believe that you'll work locally, even on a virtual basis, you can't work in your own state if you're virtual. They don't have work in your own state. The company most likely does not have leads in your state and has stopped mailing their campaigns here, probably because they encroached the law in my state, because my state's much more lawful than that state. The state of Washington would have no patience or tolerance for sending a card in the mail like that to somebody. And it probably would get them for false advertising or fraudulent something or other or something. Anyway, so I had to get an additional license for the state of Georgia, a state where I never set foot in my life because I prefer to stay north of the Mason-Dixon line. Even though many agents are based on the East Coast, West Coast. I should have said West Coast. There's a sales call 6 days a week that you must attend from the time you enroll, even though there is a long licensing process you must get through first in order to be officially onboarded and working. Because this meeting occurs at 5 a.m. Pacific time, my honorable ass rolled out of bed 5 minutes prior and often listened with one eye open in bed in the dark. Of course, immediately, this put me on the roster as a black sheep and put me on the shit list as an imbecile who does not put in the effort of appearing on camera, dressed in business clothes, all right? And is expected to start the day immediately after the call, the sales call, even if, and it's really boring, they just go over numbers. Oh, yada yada, made $50,000, yada yada, made $5,000 in one deal, or yada yada, blah, 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 and all this other crap, and just a bunch of just hot wind and hot air and bullshit coming out of their mouth for an hour every day. And this is during the time of hibernation, during the winter, when we like to hibernate. We prefer to sleep in And I'm doing a full-time job on top of this with 40 hours, and I'm not yet licensed, so I don't get what the frick is expected of me during the day after this call, and why I should stay up and do stuff, and yada yada. And he was adamant that, like, he started waking up at 5 a.m. and then, like, all that crap. Yes, I know that as a Buddhist, I believe that you should potentially check that out. I just wasn't ready to do that. So in that sense, I give the guy credit for that, but he could have stolen that from the Buddhists, so it might not be his necessarily. You also have to pay your own licensing fee, and for a pre-recorded, very dull course by an old lady, probably from Boston with a Boston accent, on insurance, for which the company probably makes a commission, even though they tell it that it is expensive. And there was some incentive, like they would pay for it after your first several sales or something like that. Anyway, since I could not support myself without the additional job, well, getting started in insurance, I work full-time on another home-based opportunity with an hourly wage, as mentioned. And this is not without inconvenience. And the morning meetings came during the hibernate, as I said, blah, 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 blah. And even if it's 8 o'clock in the morning, right, your local time, or by the extension of a second meeting, right? So if it was 8 o'clock Pacific, I would understand, but still not be up for it. But yeah, I would understand. But no such convenience applied. They talk about it. They never do that second meeting. This can have lasting health consequences, right? That alone is enough to be of concern to this case, especially with the earnings potential made in this industry are kited several times a week with only hearsay evidence and statements made by other supported supposed agents who claim to make well over $100,000 annually, a sum that few starting therapists or even court commissioners and judges even make. Well, I would say for the judges, I don't know. Probably they do make them. But, few therapists, which I'm training to be, make them. Having been guided up and given confidence by these statements after day for a long time, seeing that I was putting in the work and gut that I and gut. What? I don't know what that is. Oh, got my license. Yeah. And an unfinished statement. I trained as a writer. That's why I'm all wonky, donkey. That's why I'm like this. My thoughts are always discombobulated and elsewhere, and I'm always working on it. Like, if this doesn't pan out, I have to write another script, right? More epic than this, and write a movie, because So, that's to explain my character being. So, I'm an entertainer, simultaneously trying to be real with you. And I will be, like, a therapist. Despite this, I have a couple years to work through that and balance coming professionalism and graduate education with a non-serious creative writing degree that made me think that you could get rich making YouTube videos, or you could get rich writing for magazines and writing books on your own and publishing them on Amazon and crap like that. So that's the reason why I'm like this. Maybe I wouldn't make a good judge, sure. I probably would not be serious enough for actual court. On the other hand, if I went to law school, you can change. You can make that. You can make those decisions happen. So I understand. Yeah, I wasted the last couple minutes of your time, and you probably think that I'm as crazy and delusional as the doctors have said I was for the past few years. That's a whole other ballgame. We'll get there. So having been kited off and given confidence by these statements day after day, and I was getting there, I was moving forward. I had improved my persuasion and was now booking higher ed liposuction consultations each workday on the job. I was eagerly looking for a new start, thinking how I spend my first $100,000 in business. My first day was a real bummer. It was the previously described story of getting in trouble with the boss, who was about to fire me over nothing but my shyness. I was shaking from the stress. And of course, I had put everything on the line and quit my job, soft quit. No, it was kind of a soft quit because I kept their computer equipment and I was able to get back in and they rehired me. But, when I grew a brain and realized I'm not going to make $100,000 later, etc. So, my regional manager thought I had a car, but I had made it clear that my car was repossessed, and my reason for doing something that was home-based, such as that opportunity, was because he didn't have a car. But he was like, the only way you can do this locally in your area is to have a vehicle, etc. And then I would have to go during COVID to people's houses, probably old people, and go through the whole spiel, which I think this is a scam. Now, keep in mind, they do sell for legitimate insurance companies. I just think this particular company is sketchy and has a poor reputation from what I've seen. You don't have any of the evidence. Probably all the evidence you see in this video is against the judge, but we'll get to that. So the main thing about having a training program like this is that it needs to be safe for newbies. There should be no quality control like that, and traps, no trick phone calls, no traps for new people and rookies. And definitely the president of the company should not have access to every little cadet or rookie. Not that the fat lady in the office would have been any kinder, but I suppose she would have been. So at the minimum, before getting into law, I would mandate that this homo with an anger problem get counseling for at least 1 year. That's the first order of the court. Now, and kind of thinking there might not have been a crime. I don't have sufficient, I did have sufficient evidence in my mind, but I don't have sufficient hard state evidence from the plaintiff, the multiple people that would be suing this corporation. My attorney, if I was represented in such a suit, instead of being the judge of this case, I don't have sufficient evidence that the law was broken, so I'm about to hand down a sentence that's pretty major, and I'm thinking that, well, maybe the year of counseling would suffice, but we would have to look at data, we would have to audit them, we would have to get information from them, and then if we did, and I determined that they were guilty of racketeering, which I had thought they were, if I was convinced they were guilty of racketeering, that's when Florida state law allows for a maximum sentence of 30 years in prison for this felony. And if that was the case, if I determined that to be the case by all the evidence, then both of these guys would have been given 30 years each in prison, and they could finish they could have their relationship in prison, and they could, the guy could get his counseling in prison for all I care. But, for that serious accusation, I would need people from both sides to give me the scoop. I would need to see the financial data. I would need to see the level of trickery involved, and etc. Otherwise, it does seem par for the course in the sleazy world of life insurance. Unfortunately, even when you have licensed agents, it's just a sleazy business, especially even the corporations like they have Americo that they represent. These corporations don't pay for anything, and they get out of it, and etc. So it's a very sleazy business. So during the course of this talk, I have changed my mind. I had originally thought I would throw the book at them and give them 30 years each for racketeering. Now that I see that the person speaking before you, the court, the person speaking for the court, is the problem in the case, which would mean that the person sitting over there with the lawsuit might be, responsible for their own success or failure. So, incidentally, I'm not going to throw the book at them. But, if it was determined that they were racketeering, I would freeze their assets, but also I would leave that for a more experienced judge and a more empowered judge to handle it. So if they wanted to seize their assets and all their money, that would be on them. But this court would only freeze their assets for a further trial and further investigation by a bigger, better judge, because, I'm a rookie, and, I've heard the case that I was speaking, and preposterously, I'm an honest man, it was a case against me. And it shows that I lacked the fortitude to earn one of these gavels. I wanted to pay for, I suppose, law school and pay for my current education, right? With $100,000, sock away $100,000, and maybe even go to medical school. But I heard what I said, and it sounded like baloney. So I don't want to blame anyone for this but me, and him for his attitude, the guy for his attitude, and making me feel like everything was on the line because I hadn't studied enough and I hadn't read enough. I didn't have experience at this, right? I was new at this, so I was getting it for not having experience. So that I didn't appreciate. I didn't appreciate the way he spoke to me 100% at all. Don't appreciate his character. I don't appreciate the guy. Nonetheless, if he appeared before me in court on this side of the argument as the defense and as the defendant, with his gaggle of lawyers yelling at me, I have to, they wouldn't have to yell at me because I would listen to their case and yada yada. But that's the legal aspect of this case. Then we have the fortuitous psychic aspects that I talk about. And as I said, these are not codified by law, not law of man anyway. So I was convinced that he used the psychic internet and put thoughts in people's mind during the telecast and did things like that were devious that I caught. And however, until the technology is available to prove these things on Earth, then we can't prove them. But I believe that in other courts and other places in the universe, like in the heavens, it would be more arbitrary, and also that these things would be more developed. Anyway, I had stated in my script that this is where mystical powers would come in. If I had those, I would hear cases of each manager. Hold on, never mind that. Right, because if the organization was culpable for racketeering, I would have to investigate each of the managers, each of the salespeople, and all that stuff and everything. And I suppose where I was going with that about mystical powers is having to do with the psychic world, as I just mentioned. Also, the fact that the deceptive postcards are used throughout the industry is valid, and so I can't stop them because they send, postcards like this is a postcard about your mortgage. Call us about your mortgage. That's alarmist. That's fear-based marketing. I don't like that, but that's the entire industry right now, and every insurance producer in the country seems to be doing that, according to what I understand, which is one reason why I did continue in the business and didn't go back to the business. Just in case you're wondering, as an aside, I wouldn't recommend doing that line of work. Anyway, under the authority of the FTC, this might be something that could be changed. But for now, it can't be. In general, I don't care for the insurance industry, and I'm glad that my introduction to it was short-lived and that I did not sell any of these bogus policies to anyone. Beyond that, if Satan weren't involved, there wouldn't be many unknowns or potential for causality of catastrophic loss. Time will only tell if we can move beyond these old structures and old ideas of throwing nastiness around. So, if this was a civil trial between the two companies and all their little hens and their little geese and their little flock of sheep that go after them and try to do this business to earn $100,000 and fail because they lose resources or they quit their job or they spend a lot of money and time doing this, I would hear the case and I would hear from both sides. And that is just a matter of who owes who, what, and getting the property in the proper hands. So really, racketeering is a serious crime. It often involves trap houses, gambling houses, places where drugs are distributed, places where prostitution occurs. And that refers, that's more what it refers to than an insurance company. But of course, by definition, it does include that. Anyway, I just gave these guys a much fairer shake than I thought I was going to. And that's that case. As an aside, and next case, since courts, it's not a case, next order of business, since courts continuously take business all day, I would like to address the individual who had used Arizona court's email address to register with my day job for a liposuction appointment. It's good that you contact me to change your email address to a private one. If you hadn't done so, I would have considered that dishonorable and unbecoming for an officer or appointee of the court, particularly a judge. Whatever your position is, I do suggest never providing your work email for as long as you are in the court system for such trivial matters. And if it were in my authority, I would investigate you for compliance and make sure you were doing your job professionally. Cutting you from the roster if it were required, and if it were allowed and required in my capacity. However, that's neither here nor there. And of course, work email you can use freely in most cases, especially as you rise up in rank. They give you more freedom and they don't really care as much. Judges don't have oversight. They should have oversight. But it would just be oversight from other judges and stuff like that. So, you know what I'm saying? So, and that, folks, is the order of the day. And my next order, I wrote, will be lunch, but it's now late at night, and it wouldn't even be something. My next order might be dessert, right? But I don't have money for dessert. I don't eat dessert or sweets. But my next order will be lunch. But because I've been on a budget, I'll be my own short order, go to the next out of order. So, other than that, order. Good day. Good day to you. Thank you for listening to my long, rambling, schmutty review. I don't know what the future is of this show. I like the other shows I've tried. But if you like the humor and you feel like this might be fun, even if it's not so fun currently because of the reasons described for my incapacity severally before you, just hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll give you more of this to try out. See if you like this wacky sort of David Letterman when he was a little kid going to grad school. I don't think he did go to grad school. And then there's that story about him holding it up and losing his show. And probably that's all I'm going to say about someone like that, especially when dressed as a judge. So I think that I've been more direct and forthcoming as a character dressed as a judge than any character I know about or have seen, because they normally do not. They have the third wall here. They normally don't address the audience whatsoever, and normally their head is entirely in the case, and you see them in their natural habitat while they're doing their work. So that's kind of dorky, and as you can see, it's dorky being me, and sometimes not all that fun. But that's what therapy is about, and this is empty chair therapy, folks. All we're doing here is really therapy. So I invite you to try different things. If you do want to get a gavel and gown and decide on cases in your life, you're welcome to do so. But that doctor definitely did interfere with my life, and he had a graduate education, so he's not excused. In this case, it's a little different. There's no identifiable crime. You can't put your finger on it. There's no trial that occurred. I didn't receive evidence from either side, and I'm not sure. Maybe I'm out a couple $100. And then I bought the printer for this business, but as you can see, I use the printer for my current work as a creator and whatnot. So I don't mind having printed. I really didn't think I was going to give those guys such an easy time, but being liberal, there you go. Thank you for watching.